you are a phenomenal writer, and you recently wrote an article entitled Self-Care Isn't Selfish. And just the title is really grabbing and moving. I remember when I got my hands on it for the first time, I thought, oh, this is going to be good. So share with us what inspired you to write this article.
I'd have to say what inspired me is my clients, really.
Mm.
So many come in just feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, tired. And, the season of COVID that we've been in was also an inspiration on how are we really taking care of ourselves when we don't have all of the normal social supports and activities that we're used to. And so that was really, really the impetus behind writing the article.
That's so good. And so I guess you kind of included that. You said your inspiration was your client. So who is this article? Who is this content for of self-care?
Well, like I said in the opening phrase of the article, if you're reading the title and saying, yeah, right,
Mm,
this is who this article is for anyone that really feels that it is selfish. To take care of myself is an act of selfishness or self-centeredness. I want to debunk that myth.
mm,
And I want people to be empowered to know that they can care for themselves and how they can care for themselves and the parts of themselves that really need attention. And so that was really who I wanted to grab hold of, was anyone who thinks that there's not time, there's not space, the demands on me are too high, and I'm not afforded time to care for
mm.
myself.
Oh, that's so good. So what does it really mean to take care of ourselves?
That's a great question. And I think it's a very personal question, Anna. It's a question that we all should really ask ourselves. What does it mean to take care of me? What do
Mm,
I need? Because I might need something completely different than you need, than my spouse needs, than my children need. And and how do I take care of myself? And so I talk a little bit about how to assess that. What are those needs? And in the article, I look at really four dimensions of self-care: the spiritual, the physical, the mental, and the emotional. So if we look at kind of those needs within ourself and understand what does it look like to take care of myself spiritually, physically, mentally, and emotionally, then I may start to uncover what some of my needs are.
mm,
Many times as individuals, we focus outside of ourselves
yeah.
to what does my husband need, my wife need, what do my coworkers need, what does my boss need, what does my children need, what do my friends or family or church fellowship members need, but we very rarely look toward ourselves to say, what do I need?
Mm. And that's a powerful question.
Yeah.
Like to really say, okay, what is it that I need? And so it's so easy to forget taking care of ourselves. So easy to forget to check in. What is it that I need? And so I would ask you, why do you think we so easily forget to check in? What is it that I need? What is it that is going to take care of me in this moment? Why do we forget that so easily?
Mhm. So I think there's a lot of different answers to that, clearly, but our culture, just in general, especially as a Christian culture, we are taught, almost from our very beginnings, that it is more blessed to give than to
Mhm.
receive,
Yeah.
right? And that is scriptural. There is nothing wrong with that, but the application of that does not does not imply that we do not care for ourselves. Yes, we are called to give to others, to esteem others higher than ourselves, but we have to be careful that while we're esteeming others higher, that we are not esteeming ourselves lower
Oh, come on. That's good.
and more lowly. And so yes, I can esteem others higher, but do I have an accurate view of myself?
Mm,
Do I see myself the way my King, my God sees me? Because he esteems me highly. so highly that he gave himself for me. And so do I look upon myself and my needs the way my king does?
Mm, wow. That's powerful. I've never heard it shared like that before. And it's even causing me to reflect right now is that yes, I want to esteem others higher, but that doesn't mean I think less of me. That's such a
Mhm.
powerful nugget. Like if we can walk away with anything today, that might just be it because that is so powerful. And you just mentioned a few moments ago that you describe 4 dimensions of self care. And I love that because I think sometimes we think self care is like a bubble bath, right? Or
Mhm.
that's kind of what's portrayed to us in
Mhm.
like TV or movies or books, whatever. And so, share with us a little bit more about those dimensions. If you could maybe describe those dimensions and what those look like
Mhm.
practically in our lives.
Yeah, yeah. So let's start with the spiritual
Hmm.
and the spiritual care, right? Are we feeding or caring for our spirit uh, on a regular basis, right? Are we taking in the love of our God? Are we communing with him? Are we in fellowship and relationship with him, nourishing our own spirit? Nourishing the part of ourself that connects to our sustainer, our provider, our giver of life, or are we neglecting that? Are we taking time in his word, in fellowship with other believers? Are we taking time to seek and knock and ask for what we need spiritually, for the guidance and the provision that we need in our life daily? Because much like the physical, and I'll jump to that next, right? If we're only nourishing our spiritual self on Sunday mornings and maybe during a weekday service or a life group once a week, right? And the rest of the time we're not nourishing, oh, we're
Hmm.
going to be starving spiritually. So we
Hmm.
really need to spend some time nourishing, right? And Matthew 4:4 records Jesus saying, "Man shall not live by bread alone,
Hmm.
right? But every word that comes from the mouth of God." And so we need that spiritual nourishment. We
Hmm.
need time with our King, with our God, with our Savior. And to know, to open ourselves up to that, to make ourselves available for that nourishment. But oftentimes we don't make it a priority.
Hmm. So good. So practical. Thank you. And so the next dimension that you did briefly mention is that physical dimension. Tell us more about that.
Mhm. The physical dimension, which is probably the one that most of us are more familiar with,
Yeah.
right? It's the taking care of our body, right? So what does that look like? We hear, let's eat less sugar, let's eat, less fat or healthy fats, and let's balance our carbohydrates and our proteins. And yes, our nourishment is part of taking care of us physically. Are we putting in to the body that which is healthy
Mm,
and sustaining for us? So are we engaging in a healthy diet? And are we engaging in physical activity that
mm,
is also good for the body? Right? What do we do with our body? Right? Our body works, right? It performs, it engages. Everything that we do with our body. So are we caring for our body, for the physical needs that our body has? Are we ignoring pain? Are we ignoring injury? Oh, it'll be fine.
mm,
I'll just get over it, right? If we have a broken ankle, for example, how do we care for that?
mm,
Right. Well, we probably are going to ice it, stabilize it, take it to a doctor, give it an X-ray, put it in a cast, stay off of it for 6 to 8 weeks. Then we get the cast off. Then we move into a regimen of physical therapy for a number of weeks. And then every so often, it's probably going to twinge
mm.
off and on again, right?
Yeah.
But we actually take care of it, right? There's very few of us that would look at a broken ankle and say, it'll be fine, just keep walking on it. No, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to take care of it. But some of the lesser points within our physical body, right,
Mm,
that are sore back, for example, because we've got low back pain or upper back pain or whatever it is because we're hunched at a computer all day, or maybe we're a physical laborer and we're working all day.
mhm,
Are we taking some time to attend to that part of ourselves?
mm,
Right. Or do we just keep saying it'll be fine? Right. Like the old adage, right? Well, I'll rest when I'm dead. Okay, but you could make yourself really miserable in the meantime. And
uh-huh. Yeah.
and so can we take care of our physical body? Treat it well because it does so much for us.
That's so good. And that's so good. Thank you for sharing that. And you said that physical, when we think of self-care, a lot of the physical sides of it come to it. And I think as just humans, and we really set aside the other two dimensions that you mentioned, that we don't necessarily see these things as self-care, the two things that you're about to mention. So I'm excited for you to share on those and what self-care looks like in those areas.
Yeah, yeah. So let's look at the mental first. The
Okay.
mental part of self-care. What am I thinking? Right?
Mm,
What rolls through my mind and how does it affect me? And is it true?
wow.
Am I believing thoughts because they pop into my head and I latch onto them and I believe that they're true? Because just because we think something doesn't make it true. And scripture is clear on taking our thoughts captive,
Yeah.
right? Second Corinthians 10 verses 4-6 has a really great example on what we do with these thoughts, because we can have intrusive thoughts that really are not helpful.
Mm,
They don't produce the fruit of the spirit that we want. They don't produce joy. They don't produce patience or kindness or gentleness, right? And so we have to execute self-control over some of these thoughts.
mm,
But not only that, as we look at Second Corinthians uh, chapter 10, verse 4, we see the kind of the method on taking our thoughts captive. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God,
mm,
right? And so when we have a stronghold or a place within our thought life that is condemning, that is harmful to us, that is critical or judgmental, and we're just letting it go on and on and on, and we don't take it captive, right? Or maybe we're trying to, but it seems really hard to bring it, to turn it around, and it's just a distressing thought that keeps permeating and infiltrating our minds.
mm,
Hey, the weapon of our warfare is mighty in God,
mm,
and He can bring down that stronghold. Our part is to grab hold of the thought and bring it captive to Christ and invite
mhm,
Him to help us make it obedient. And so, this concept, right, all the way back into 2000 years ago plus, right? This was God's concept. We call it now mindfulness,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
think about what we're thinking about, right? Yeah, pay attention. What's going on in my mind? Is it true? Right? The scriptures also speak of renewing our mind, and also whatever is pure, whatever is noble, whatever is praiseworthy. Think on these things. Right? Well, is that what I'm actually doing?
Mm,
Am I thinking on these things that are pure and noble and true and praiseworthy? Or am I being critical and harsh with myself?
mm,
And am I allowing somebody else to be critical and harsh with me? Right? And is that criticism or that harshness, is it is it true?
mm,
Right? Sometimes we allow or we take hold of something that maybe we've was said to us in our past. Somebody made a comment about us, and it's latched on and it's stuck and we believe it to be true. But when we hold it up, what does God say about me?
Mm,
Oftentimes it just crumbles into dust and is nothing.
yeah.
And so we have to remember that God has not given us a spirit of fear, which oftentimes these thoughts create fear and anxiety within us. I'm not good enough. I'm stupid. I'm I'm no good.
Mm,
I'm a failure.
yeah.
All right. But that spirit of fear doesn't come from God because God gave us power, love, and a sound mind.
Mm,
And we can rest in that promise that that's what he has for us.
mm,
I want to jump to the emotional, right? Because oftentimes what we think influences how we feel.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so our emotions are not right or wrong.
Mm,
We feel because our king feels. And throughout all of scripture, we see God's emotions displayed. We see his love, his mercy, his compassion. We see his anger, his jealousy. We see his sorrow and his sadness. So we have a full rainbow of emotions
yeah.
because our God, our creator, has these emotions and we are his image bearers. We bear his image. And and so our feelings are not right or wrong. Right. And so oftentimes we we might tell ourselves or other people may have told us you shouldn't feel that way. Right?
Mm,
What you're feeling isn't correct or isn't accurate and it's somehow wrong. But in reality, we feel because we feel because we feel.
mm,
And our feelings are precisely correct. We feel because that's what we feel.
mm,
What gets us into trouble sometimes is our response or our
mm.
reaction to what
Yeah.
we're feeling,
Yes.
right? And sometimes we react out of self-defense to
Mm,
protect ourselves, which is a very, very normal human response. All of us have that built within us. It's part of our survival mechanism that our God wired within us. And in many cases, that reaction is very right. And
mm,
and it has been right, perhaps in our past, to get us through really difficult times, to help protect us from really painful experiences. But maybe in some of the relationships that we are engaging in now, those reactions are not as helpful,
mhm,
right? So so our emotional state, right, is is really important to acknowledge what am I feeling? Yeah, I am feeling hurt, or I am feeling angry, or I'm feeling happy, and I'm feeling full of joy.
mm,
To really acknowledge it, to allow yourself to experience whatever that emotion is without judgment.
mm,
When we're able to do that, we're better equipped to then choose our response rather than moving into that very fast reaction that many times leaves us feeling like I shouldn't have done that.
mm,
I wish I could pull that back or retract it, right? So if we're able if we're able to be more gentle with our emotions, to validate our own and others, right? With care and understanding like our God does,
mm.
right? As he approaches us, right? He doesn't look at our emotions and say, "Oh, Melanie, you shouldn't feel that way." But rather I believe he looks at our emotions and says, "Yeah, I see how you feel that.
Mm.
Tell me more about it." And
So
if we can approach ourselves with that kind of kindness, then that's going to be very helpful and healthy to us.
yes, man, I love that. And I think this is an area of self-care where we really struggle the most is validating our emotions and exploring those emotions. And I love how you said when we take the time to explore our emotions and validate them, then we can better choose our response to them. And I love that, and it's powerful. So then that creates a domino effect of not only caring for ourselves, but really caring for the relationships we have around us. So it
Exactly.
becomes that level of self-care becomes a evolving care for others. And so good. And I love that you in this article explore the depths of self-care, that it is because again, culturally, when we think of self-care, we think of chocolate and a bubble bath, which is great things, or, going on a vacation. Again, wonderful things.
Mhm.
However, those things can't necessarily be done on a routine or daily basis. So, how do we care for ourselves every day? And these are so practical.
Yeah.
And um, it's so much deeper than just taking care of the surface things. It's really digging in deep introspection. And I love that. And so if you haven't had the chance to read Melanie's article, it'll be linked in the show notes. It'll be linked here, whatever you are watching, in different areas where you can find different links from My Counselor Online. And I strongly encourage you to read it because you give practical tips on how to practice these things, whether it's the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, or the mental self-care. I love that. So practical. And so I love your exploration of it, but then also the next steps to take. So lots of next steps can be found in the article. But I do want to ask you, what encouragement would you give to someone who is attempting self care for the first time or the first time in a long time?
I would say prioritize yourself,
Mm, I love
right? In Luke 5:16 and the verses preceding that, crowds are coming to Jesus for healing because they are aware of all the healing that he has been doing, and his fame is going out before him.
mm,
And and it says in Luke 5:16, so he often withdrew to the wilderness and prayed. So here are all of these crowds coming to Jesus. And what does Jesus do? He often withdrew and
mm,
prayed, right? We have to remember who Jesus is. He is God. And so in his prayer, he is communing with himself. And so
good.
all of these demands on him, and he cares for himself, not to take away from what his mission is, but
Mm,
to enable him to continue the good work that he came to do. And so we're never going to have a lack of work. There's
mhm,
never going to be nothing for us to do. Are we able? Part of being able is being healthy so that we can create that good work he has prepared in advance for us to do.
mm. Prioritizing yourself.
That's
I
right.
love it. Such a simple step to take is just really creating room, space to care for yourself. So
Mhm.
great first step. I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to write on such a practical topic, especially like you said at the very beginning, coming off of 2020, being in 2021. It has been a year for everyone, no matter your situation, no matter where you find yourself. It's been a challenging year, and care for ourselves can so easily go on the back burner. So thank you so much.